let us see by checking both z and z cap that both are converging, both are going to the same value as the time progresses. So this is z and z cap. Let us see. One second. Actually, I should say it is cap z and z, because the first one we are connecting is the estimate value. Okay, so let us run. So if you see, initially there is a big difference, but as the time progresses, both of them are coming closer and closer, and we can see both are the same value after some time. So what does it mean is something very important we need to understand is maybe the estimated parameter is not correct. Maybe it's not accurate because of some noise or some other reason. But this model, what we are predicting, is the best possible thing we can come up with the given scenario. So what we are saying is whatever you are giving the input, the system is behaving exactly like what we have in our computer simulation. So even if the parameter is little error with little error, we can say that this is the best estimate we can have it, because we can see z and z cap are both are same. So the system is behaving exactly as we are predicting. So our objective is done. Maybe if value maybe is not exactly 3, it may be having some small error, but still we can say it is a good representation of our actual system. The similar way we are do it in we can do for what we call the least square method, least square algorithm, solving the same problem. So it's the same problem we are solving. Instead of 3 we have 30. So what we expect here is to have 30. So it raises to 30 and stays there. Okay. And let us also plot this z cap and z and see if both are coinciding. So we can copy paste this this part and let's join them. And let us see these results. I am connecting to the same terminals. I did a mistake. I had to connect to the Z. Okay, now it is different. Okay, so initially they started with different values, but as the time goes, the parameter is more close to the real value. We can see both are very coinciding each other. And here you see that graph is not very smooth because I'm not taking all the outputs out. I'm not taking all the outputs to the visual side to make the simulation a little faster. I'm taking only one output for every 100 times it is doing computation. If I reduce here to 10, so the graph will be a little more smoother. It will be much smooth than before. So we can see this. As the time progresses, you can see Z estimate is getting very close to the Z. So let us stop and see. So it's both are you can see it's very close, or we can say both are same. They both converged each other. Okay, that's the first example I wanted to show. if you have any doubts, please ask me. This is the first dynamic example we are doing. Yesterday we saw the static example. This is the first dynamic example we are seeing. If you have any doubts, please ask me.
Can we this RCs as variables and verify this algorithm? Is it possible to do that in this? Like the RC parameters, after some step time, they change, and then so algorithm will be able to predict even after the change, like R and C. I think that also can be verified, right?
Yeah, we can. This algorithm will work, but this software UMAC doesn't allow the transfer functions to change in the middle of simulations. Okay. The transfer functions are something stable. Maybe I can give this option in the future, but right now what we are treating these transfer functions as once the simulation is started, we can't change the values of RC. I mean the transfer function. But if we use, instead of transfer function, if we use the
state space probably.
This form, not state space cell, because I think even state space we didn't give that option. But if we use this format using integral, if we can construct a model, we can change constants there, and it will be working. We can see that it's, yes, it will work. But it depends on the algorithm. It works for least square algorithm with forgetting factor. This is the forget factor we have. We have seen this algorithm yesterday, so I'm not discussing about this. If we don't have this factor, if we change parameters, it may not change. Okay. But for the gradient algorithm, it will work because the algorithm itself is something designed to reach its parameter value all the times. The least square needs this extra factor. So if we don't have this factor, it will be not reaching the new parameter value. Yes.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Welcome, sir. Any other doubts?
Hello. Yes, sir. Sir, is this parameter variation possible in MATLAB? You are saying in your system it is not possible. I don't think even in MATLAB changes in transfer function during the simulation, does it allow?
As per my knowledge, it is not possible, ma'am. I tried once, it is not possible. But MATLAB is having one functionality, like some of the inputs you can give as what you call as a time varying. So instead of having, for example, here we have numerator, denominator. These two in MATLAB, there is an option called you can have them as a port. Instead of giving fixed values, you can have a port. So if you have a port, it is like time varying. With the time, you can give whatever value you want. So in that, you can give some constant, and you can change those constants during the simulation. I mean, there are some tricks to do that, but directly like this transfer function, it is not possible. Actually, we are basing most of the time in comparing with MATLAB, so we are using the same format how they are having Simulink to have similar ones. Yes.
I think we can use an embedded programming block there. A small programmable block can be put. I think, I don't know.
In MATLAB, yes.
Yeah, there is an embedded programming block. I think that part can be replaced by that.
Yes, but anyway, it's much easier if you use integral block, this technique. What we are saying, that's much easier because again you can change during the simulation, and even for MATLAB it works. So I think that will be much easier.
What about the implementation of hardware in loop between the real time and simulation time?
You're asking about this program, ma'am?
In general, I'm asking.
Okay, for hardware in loop, if you are talking about using some MATLAB program or this program, the MATLAB is having some tools. We still don't have. That's our objective is to develop those tools. And regarding algorithm, in much later in this today's course, we will see how we can implement this in a microcontroller one. Whatever algorithm we are seeing, we are doing integration and other things. Instead of having integration, we can have another operator, the difference operator or the delay, unit delay. We can use those delays and implement the same algorithm. We will see that. Yes, ma'am. But as per this software UEMARK using hardware in loop, right now it is not available. But in the future, that's the main objective to have it.
Yeah, even when you are trying to do that, even MATLAB it is not allowing the real-time simulation. That is the major hurdle. It may allow the hardware in loop, but real time will not be able to see exactly.
The real time, there is one real time desktop option, ma'am. In MATLAB, we can have that real time desktop option and it runs in real time. I have used real time MATLAB simulation and it works good. For that, all the all the blocks are not allowed. There are certain blocks they allow. So if you use some hardware blocks, it will say this is not allowed for real-time desktop simulation.
Okay.
Yeah, but maybe you have to explore it. The toolbox is called real-time desktop, something like that in MATLAB.
Okay. Yes. Thank you.
What is the hardware you are using with the MATLAB?
No, earlier our students, they have tried to use, they wanted to make a PMU with for phasor estimation in single phase and three phase, and there we faced the problem. The difference in the simulation time and the real time. Then
Yes.
they just okay. Please carry on. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, welcome. Okay. Okay, so this is the first dynamic equation we are solving. We solved. We have estimated the parameters. So let's go to the next one. Next example, example 21. Here we have a second order system. We have RLC circuit. This RLC circuit is equivalent to this in Laplace transform. Again, here we have voltage and voltage across capacitor is measurable. So voltage across capacitor is the same using the same voltage divider rule. We can say the voltage capacitor is equal to voltage divided by the impedance times the capacitive impedance called reactance, or we can say impedance as well for the time being. Okay, so whatever the voltage across capacitor is given by this formula. So VC, by reorganizing, we can say VC is equal to V divided by the second order system. So again, reorganizing the terms, we can say V minus VC is equal to this dynamic equation. So this is in the form Z is equal to theta star transpose time phi. And so what is Z here? This part V minus VC. And what is theta star? Is all the unknown parts of this equation, which is LC and RC. So we are writing it in the matrix form LC, RC. And phi is all the known ones and the dynamics, or all the measurable one and the dynamics. So measurable is VC times S square and VC times S. We have here in the phi. So now we can see it is in the matrix form. So Z is equal to theta star transpose times phi it is 2 by 1 matrix. If we transform, it will become 1 by 2 matrix. 1 by 2 times 2 by 1, we give 1 by 1 matrix, which is Z. So the multiplication, the result is scalar, but each the coefficient and the phi are vectors. So now we are entering into the using vectors and matrices. So whenever we are multiplying, we should be extra careful and we should make sure that we are multiplying in the correct order. Otherwise, we may receive unexpected results. So also I want to show one small error I have done here. This is actually not Z cap is equal to theta times phi. It is theta transpose times phi, because it's same as.
Sir, sorry to disturb you. Sir, can you please go back to the previous slide, sir?
This one?
This one.
Oh,
which previous, one? Sir. Previous.
This one. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You have any doubt on this slide, sir?
To recollect the relation, sir. VC is equal to V by LCS square plus RCS plus 1.
Yes, sir. You're talking about this part, sir?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You want explanation to this? You are saying, sir?
Yes, sir. 1 minute, sir. 1 minute.
Oh, you are looking. Okay.
Yes, sir. Once you please explain that, sir.
Okay. Yeah. So voltage across capacitor, what I mean is if you put multimeter or the voltmeter between these two terminals, this terminal and this terminal, what is the voltage we will measure? Okay. The voltage what we measure here is same as current times the impedance or reactance in this. What is the reactance in this is 1 divided by CS. Now we are working in Laplace transform, or we can say frequency domain. So we can treat each of terms as like how we treat resistance in DC. Let us have an analogy like this is a DC circuit with all the elements are resistances and their values are R. Here the value is 1 by CS and here the value is LS. So what we do is these are three resistances in series. So what is the current? Current is equal to voltage divided by all these three resistances, right?
So maybe voltage division rule also.
Yes, sir. It's applying voltage divider rule. So voltage, or we can say this is the current, voltage divided by all the three resistances. And what is the voltage across this capacitor? We have to multiply the current times this resistor, or in this case it is impedance, it is 1 by CS. So you are multiplying it with 1 by CS. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And after rearranging this terms, we get this, and we are comparing with this, and we are getting. Okay. And before proceeding, I have to say I did a mistake. I will correct it in the future. This is actually not theta times phi. Until now, we never had a problem because we had scalar. Actually, what it is theta transpose time phi. Why? Because that's the actual model. We have Z is equal to theta star transpose phi. So you should understand that it was a small mistake I have done.
No, I think initially you have told the same, sir. I think.
I already told, sir. Okay.
Yeah, initially I remember you have told the transpose, theta star transpose. In initial first when you have introduced this algorithm, I remember it. I think somewhere in between it has changed.
Okay. Yes, I think some mistake I have done. Okay. So thank you, sir. So let us proceed with this. Let me show what I have done, and let us go with this equation number 6, the 21st. Let us see the gradient algorithm first. Okay, if you see here, this is the model we are having. this is the model. The VC is equal to a second order. We can see this second order system. So this the input is, this input is V, and the output is VC. And this is a second order system. And what is phi and Z? We have to calculate. The Z is V minus VC. So where is, let us, this is Z, so this Z. The Z is the difference between V and VC. So we have Z. So let's calculate phi. So what is phi? Phi is a matrix or a vector. We can say it's a column matrix with first term is S square times VC. What does we call S? If 1 by S is integral, we say S is a differentiation. So we have to do differentiation twice. Twice we do differentiation and then we put it to the first row. What is the second row? The second row is one derivation, derivated one time. So this is the second term. So we are constructing one matrix with two elements. The first element is derivated at 2 times of the VC. The second term is once derivated with VC. So this is derivation once dot first, and the other one is 2 times. So we have this. This is our phi. We have phi here. So we have phi. Okay. So let us say this is the, we are estimating theta here. So if we have theta, so what we are having here is transpose. So if we multiply theta transpose times phi, what we get is the Z estimated. So this is theta transpose. If this is theta transpose. If you multiply, we get Z cap. So we get Z estimated value. So we get Z cap. So we can feed all these three information to the algorithm and it will calculate the values of 30 and 20. Let us say, because the answer is a column matrix. If you see, we can see that 30 is reaching a little quick, but this 20, it is taking time. We can see it will reach, but it will take some time. Let us keep it running for a while and we'll see it will reach. You can see it's slowly increasing and it will reach after a certain time. But the problem is the real life, we can't wait that long and it may take, and also algorithm we won't consider is good. And there is the reason is we are exciting with one sine wave. By exciting with one sine wave, it will take some time to reach, because theoretically what we get is one sine wave is sufficient to estimate 2 parameters. We have 2 parameters, so one sine wave is sufficient, but it's not saying recommended. It is sufficient to have estimate 2 values. But if you want to estimate with better accuracy and with what you call with high speed or converge a little quick, we have to use more sine waves, so that we can do it now. And also before going that, let us see how the Z and Z cap are looking in looks in this case. So this is Z cap. This is Z. Let us see how they both move. So we can see they are almost, they are converging. Let me give more values so that we can see it better accuracy. Initially they are very much different, but as the time goes, we are getting much closer values. So from this point, we can see both are somewhat similar, but not exactly same. So it will take more time to estimate. So after a certain time, it will reach. Okay, but we have, okay. So we have this, I have added 2 sine waves and 1 triangular wave, and we run the same. Now we can see the values are converging a little quicker, a little faster than what it was before. It is because we are giving more information to the system to give better identification. So this, what we have to understand from this is if we don't give enough information to the system may take long time. It will recognize, but it will be very long time, and we may be not sure if it reached it or not. So now we can say it has reached 20 and 30. So it takes more time if you are you are in the condition of sufficient condition. So the condition is 1 sine wave is good for identifying 2 parameters. But if you give more sine waves, it is much good. What do I mean by more sine waves? With different frequencies. This frequency is 1 hertz, and this one is 0.5 hertz. And I am adding another triangular wave with 0.25 hertz. Okay, so this is the algorithm, and similarly we have the same algorithm in least square. Let me use this in another tab. We have least square method as well. The same algorithm the same system implemented with another algorithm. And this one is converging a little quicker compared to the gradient algorithm. If we see this, it's getting a little quicker. And that's why we use mostly the least square algorithm. It's better than the gradient algorithm. And let us see how we are doing the multiplication in gradient algorithm. So we seen until here it is clear how we got. And in the multiplication here, the difference, it is a scalar difference. So we get epsilon here. So what is the gradient algorithm? This is the gradient algorithm. The epsilon we are multiplying with phi. The epsilon we are multiplying with phi. So here the order is very important. The first term is epsilon, the second term is phi. And both of them we are multiplying with gamma. So I put gamma. So here if we see, the gamma should be multiplied before these two. So here in the type of multiplication we have 2 options. You want to multiply after or you multiply before. Since it's a matrix, you should say you want to multiply before, because that's what the algorithm says. First is gamma, then epsilon, then phi. We already have these 2 terms, so we get gamma by selecting a proper multiplication type. And with this we get theta dot here and theta here. And also it is good to see in display because it's a column matrix. Once we run, we can see how it looks in display. It's reaching to 30 and 20. Okay, that's about the second order system with 2 variables. You have any doubts, please ask me for this system. Okay, if no doubts, let's go to the next. Yes,
sir. So what we mean by more information?
Okay, the more information, what do I mean? Okay, so what do I mean by more information? If we see the frequency domain of the sine wave, sir, it comes as one spike in frequency domain. So what we are giving is we are measuring like only at one point. If you see in the frequency domain, so more information means we give more frequencies so that we can have for different frequencies how the system is reacting. We can get more better details. So if only one spike if you are giving, so you are measuring with only one data, so it takes more time because it takes average and other, so the algorithm takes more time to get the result. If you have more spikes in the frequency domain, so we are exciting it, we are giving different information, more information. That's what I want to say. More information is like putting more spikes in the frequency domain. So if you see one sine wave is having one spike in frequency domain. If you have different frequencies, they have different spikes. Each spike we can consider, the theory says each spike can detect two variables. If you have more spikes, the same variable can be detected a little faster. Yes. Was it clear, sir?
Sir.
Okay. Any doubts, sir? Please ask me. Okay, if no doubt, I have to give one small comment here. This system, again, I'm using something which I said I don't use in general. So these blocks, the differentiation for the S and S square, I'm doing differentiation, which I don't recommend or I don't use in the real life or in the research life, I mean. But I'm using it here because the obvious advantage of simulation. But let us go the next part, like if we have a real system, how we can do it. And before that, let me show the algorithm, the same least square algorithm what we have seen here. It is the least square algorithm we have. This is the fourth equation. Fourth is the least square algorithm we have. If we apply this to the discrete time, we get this is the discrete time algorithm for the least square method. So what does the discrete time means? It means the time we are using as continuous in our simulation. But we already know that the simulation or anything related to computer or digital or microcontroller, we are discretizing in time and also in the y-axis like voltages. The voltage also we can't measure with continuous, we have discretized. So this algorithm makes sure that even if the time is discretized, the algorithm works as good as possible. We are not considering the discretization in the voltage measurement, only the discretization in the time measurement. So what we are doing is each step, the theta k, here k represents the present time, k minus 1 is the past. So theta, the present value is equal to theta, past theta plus some term called L times epsilon of the present. So what does this call? We call this difference equation. For continuous time, we have differential equations. For discrete time, we have difference equation. So how do we implement this difference equation is by using unit delay. I mean, unit delay or more delays we can use. The fundamental one is the unit delay, one delay. And we can come up with some transfer functions as well. And we don't use the term transfer function. We call a shift transfer function or something similar. I don't remember the exact name, but it's a shift transfer function, I think. So we have transfer functions and also difference equations which are similar to the transfer functions and differential equations in the continuous time. So in the real life, this is more useful than what we have seen in this equation 4, because all the computers or all the microcontrollers have a discrete time. So if we implement this algorithm, this will give better results. Or this, you can say this is a better representation of least square algorithm. Okay, so we have this algorithm. We will use it in the last. So let's say this is the best way to go when we are using computers. Let's solve example 22, which we are going to the robot again. I'm not going to show the visual part of the robot, but let us use the dynamics which we have collected from the which we have understood from the third class or the second day, that it is a second order system. Q is the manipulator position and V is the voltage input to the motor. So this is the dynamics we are having. So if we write in rearrange the equations, we get in this form. So in this form, we can say this part we can measure. So we are considering as a Z, and this part we can't completely measure. So we separate the ones we can measure and the ones we can't measure. So I'm using static parametric model, means the parameters will be always static. So what we are taking, the B and A is a one vector, and phi is the B is associated with QS minus QS. So it goes here, and A is multiplied with V. So it comes here. So phi theta star transpose times phi will give Z. So we can use this to simulate our algorithm. So I have this. So let's do 22. Okay, here I'm using two sine waves, and the objective is to use as realistic as possible. So I'm not going to use the differentiation like how I used before. So I used here, I'm using derivative. I'm doing differentiation directly, but in the real life we can't do differentiation because of some noise or some other reason. So what we do is we put filters. These are like low pass filter with some differentiation. So if we don't have anything, so we are putting one simple filter. If we have multiplied with S, it is like we are differentiating once. If we have S square here, we are differentiating 2 times. So in the terms of mechanical engineering, we can say position, velocity, acceleration. So that's the term we use in general as an analogy. Even if we are not actually measuring the distance or something, we use this is a position signal, this is a velocity signal, this is an acceleration signal, just to say that this is a direct signal, this is derivated with the one differentiation, with differentiated twice. So we use the term position, velocity, acceleration signals. Okay, so let us first get what is Z. The Z is S square times Q. So what is Z? It is acceleration of the manipulator Q. So if this is the input, we say this is the voltage we are giving to the, this is a voltage we are applying to the robot arm motor, and what we are receiving here is the position Q. So this is a Q. So if you are doing this, you have some filter, but what does it, the result is, it is double derivation or acceleration of Q. So we get this. So this is our Z. And let us find out what is phi. the phi is minus q times s, or you can say velocity of the robot arm, negative. We have to see the term negative. So this is the one we are using. This is a q, and if you do this operation, what we receive is the q dot minus dot q. So get minus dot q. So this is minus dot q, and this is the voltage we are giving input. So we also put a filter, because whenever we measure anything, we prefer to put a filter to make sure there are no, to attenuate the noise. So we have voltage and minus q dot. So we have these two we are putting here. So we have the complete system. So we can find out the z cap by, what is the formula? We have theta transpose times the phi. So what we get here is the z cap. So we have z cap here. So from here on, the algorithm is the same. We have the difference, and so let us see the algorithm again, because we didn't see in the matrix form. Let us see what does the algorithm says. Theta dot is equal to p times epsilon phi. So this is epsilon, and you want to multiply epsilon with phi. Phi is a matrix, and you want to multiply a matrix with a scalar. So it's sometimes it's little when you are multiplying different matrices and it considered as a 1/1 matrix, and this is 2/1 matrix, it is not possible. So what you do is we multiply this with identity matrix I, so that the value is the same, the effect is the same, but the matrix multiplication is compatible. So we put a gain of identity matrix 1 0 0 1. What does it do is simply it makes sure that the matrix multiplication is compatible, because the epsilon is a scalar value. So what we have, phi times epsilon. At this multiplication we have 3 times p, phi and epsilon. So this is epsilon, this is p, and this is phi. So we know phi and epsilon how we are received. So let us see how do we get the p value. The p value, this is the differential equation which gives us the p value. So the differential equation p dot. So this is p dot. This is p dot. So this is p. P, remember here the P is a matrix. It is not a scalar value. So if we select here and if we go initial conditions, we'll see we put a matrix. Initial condition is a matrix. Okay. So what does the algorithm says? First see this term, which is very simple. P dot is sum of two terms. The first term is, the positive term is beta times the P. So this is beta, so beta is multiplied with the P. So we are getting this first term. So what does the second term gives? The second term is negative. So let us see if it is negative. It is already negative, so we have to get this part. So we consider ms as 1. So we can just ignore this part. We have 1 second, please. Okay, we have this part. We have to multiply P times phi and phi transpose P. So how do we do that? Before reaching here, let me show one matrix identity. If we have A times B transpose, we can say this is equal to B transpose times A transpose, the matrix multiplication. And also we said that P is a matrix, positive matrix, positive definite matrix. When we say positive matrix, what does it mean? It is a symmetric matrix and it is all its eigenvalues are positive. So what can we say from this? I mean, if we have transpose, the P is the same value. The P transpose is P. So let us see how we are doing. We have phi here. Oh, here we are not using this this identity. So we have multiplying four elements, four variables. The first one is P. The second one is phi. The third one is phi transpose. The last one is P. Okay, I'm not using this identity in this one. I will use it in the future. Okay, but yeah, so this is the second term we are getting from this P, first term P, phi transpose P. So multiplying this, we get this. This is the algorithm. So here I was very careful to select what is the order of multiplication. Okay, so let us see the result. I didn't draw the result for this. Let us put a scope to see the result. Okay. So the model is, we already have the model before. It was 0.22. If you see, the numerator is 0.22 and the denominator is 9.3. So let us see if we are receiving the same values here. So we are getting something like something close to 10, and this one is something close to 0.2524. The error is because of we are not using the actual differential difference. I mean the derivatives. We are using a filter. So all these errors are added to this, and we get some different value. But if you measure it, I mean, if you measure the what you call the difference between Z and Z dot, I mean Z and Z estimate, we can see that. Let us see how it looks. I didn't see these results. I just prepared it and I came. Let me see how it looks. What I expect is they both should coincide as good as it was before. See, we can see that Z and Z dots are coinciding. So we can say this is the best thing we can come up with. So when we get Z and Z dot coinciding, we can say this is the best thing we can come up with, because we are estimating the model exactly how we are seeing it. That is for the example 22. If you have any doubts, please ask me.
The field transfer functions, the first where you told about earlier, right? Axle as velocity.
Yes.
Are these filters static filters or like are random numbers?
Okay, the filters, how we select is okay. First, for selecting filter, what you have to see is the noise, what you want to attenuate. It's the same like low pass filter. How do you design? You design the same way. But another thing we have to make sure here is, for example, you want to do differentiation, right? Of once, if you want to differentiate, you should have denominator at least S. If you want to find acceleration, so you have to do differentiation twice. So the denominator should be 2. So what we call it is a transfer function, proper transfer function. You can't have S square. I mean, numerator s square and denominator s. The order of the denominator should be always greater than or equal to the numerator. That we have to make sure. If you can prepare a good filter, and then you have to make sure that the numerator is always having the numerator's order is always smaller or equal to the denominator's order. That's the important thing. If not, it will be like you are differentiating again. It's not a filter. You will get big errors.
This is a low pass filter transfer function, right? Bottom one, 100 by s square plus 20s plus.
Yes, all three are yes. Low pass filter transfer functions with we can say this position, velocity, and acceleration. By the s on the numerator, we can say what we are doing, the operation. Yes. Was it clear, Kalyan? Your voice is breaking.
Is my Wi-Fi issues? I think he has Wi-Fi issues.
Okay. Is my voice clear to everyone?
Yeah, your voice is perfect. Yeah.
Okay. You have any doubts, please ask me, or else we can go to the last example. And also we can say that, for example, it doesn't mean that you are filtering this inside the computer. So sometimes you use some filters. We use capacitor and resistance to attenuate the signal noise. Those can be modeled as a low pass filter. So what we are doing is we are saying that you are using a low pass filter. So let's put it into the model so it will be the more representative way. So that's what we are doing in this. Even if you are not implementing in the hardware, it is most probably you are already implementing in the hardware, maybe not in the software. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so let's go to the last example. The same model we have seen. We want to implement on a microcontroller. So if you want to implement on a microcontroller, the best way is to use discrete sized algorithm, and we don't need to take care of integration or anything complex. We can just use the unit delay. So let me put that model here. Okay, so let's see first this part. This part is the same. So we have our robot here. This is the robot. We have input voltage, the output is Q, and we have seen this is Q double dot minus Q dot and VC voltage. And we have this as Z, and this is phi, the output is phi. And whatever we are getting is theta, and theta transpose times phi will give us the Z. So until here we get the same, we use the same. So what we are doing inside the computer is from here we do it, from this part we can say. So we have to, we got these signals, and what we do is we put in a matrix, and we multiply here to get the zeta Z cap. So what we do inside the computer is we apply the algorithm. What is the algorithm? The algorithm is this one. So if you see, this is what we are going to do inside the computer. There is no integration term here. We use only time delay. The time delay, we use that 1 divided by Z, the Z to the power of -1, or whatever notation we use. It shows unit delay. What does it mean? If you put some signal here, it will give the same signal but with some one delay, 1 unit delay. What is the unit here? It's a simulation time. We are putting 1 millisecond. It can be 10 milliseconds any time of what the microcontroller uses. It uses same, but recommended is it should be the same. The value should be same. The step time should be same in microcontroller. So if you make any program in your microcontroller, instead of using delay, if possible, try to use some kind of system which measures the, instead of using what you call delay in our loop, it's better to use timer in microcontrollers. There is an option of using timers. At every certain time, it executes a function. You can put all this code inside that function. And what does it do? So let us see how it works. For this, let's go with the simple one. First, calculating epsilon. Epsilon is z minus z cap. So we already have these two values. So z minus z cap gives us the epsilon. So we have epsilon here. So let us finish this and then we go step by step to the other one. Or we can go to the P first, because P is not depending on any other thing. So let us go to the P. So what does P, how do we get the P? The P is having sum of two terms. What is the first term? The previous P. And what is the other term? This big term, right? So the first term, let us see, it's the previous time. So this is the time. So the time is k. If we say time is k, so after the delay, it will be minus k, right? This is p k minus 1 after a delay. This is p and so this is, I'll put a little far away. Okay, so this is the p of k.
Is it after the delay or before delay? Oh, in time domain, right? Yeah, it's the previous.
We call it like pulses. This k, p of k is this one. So what we have here is the previous value, not the present value.
Yeah.
So this is p k minus 1. So if it is p of k, this is p k minus 1. Okay. So the first term is p k minus 1. So the first term itself is the same. So we put it here. Okay. So the second term is we have to calculate. What is the second term? The second term is we put as numerator and denominator. So we have one division. So we have a division here. So this is a numerator, this is a denominator, right? So let us go with the denominator first because it seems easy to me. So let's go with this. So the denominator is of two terms. One is, the denominator is two terms. The first one is scalar number 1. What is the other? The other one is this term, right? So let us see how we get this. So the first one we got this. The second term is, okay. The first one is phi transpose. The first one is phi transpose. So this is phi. So let's say this is phi. This is phi. So this is phi transpose. This is phi transpose. So what's the second term we want? It is p, previous value of p times the phi. So this is phi times the previous value of p. So this is the previous value of p times the phi. We get this value and we are multiplying this. So we are getting this term. So 1 plus this term is the denominator for this. So we are getting up till here. So what we are missing is the numerator. So what is the numerator? It is p times phi. So let us see, the numerator is multiplication of two things. One is p times phi. P here I mean p previous value. Previous value times phi. So this is p previous value times phi is this value, right? So we are giving this as one input. So what is the other one? Other one is the transpose of the previous one. If you see, that's why we are seeing here the AB transpose is equal to B transpose A transpose. So if you see P phi transpose, we get phi transpose time P transpose. But we are saying P transpose is equal to P, so we are writing P. So what we do here is we just multiply with this value and its transpose value. So this multiplication is what we are getting here. So this is a numerator. So numerator divided by denominator we get here, and this is the second term. So in this way we are calculating the P value, and we know the P is not a constant, it's a matrix. So we have to give initial condition as a matrix. So we give as a matrix. This is the initial condition. And while giving initial conditions, we have to make sure the eigenvalues are positive, and also it is a symmetric matrix. So how do we make sure the eigenvalues are positive? Is the simple technique is put a diagonal matrix with all positive values. So if diagonal matrix with all are positive, we can say that all the eigenvalues are positive. So we have this. Okay. So we have this equation. We have this equation. We have this equation. And let's go to this one. So what is L of k? What we need for L of k is previous p times phi. We already have that. This multiplication does that, and we are using this divided by this thing. This also we already have here. So we just tap these two values and we get it. So how do we have? We have from here. So we take these two, we divide it, and we get here the value of L of k. This is L of k. So here L of k. So what is the theta says? If this is, let's go to the first one, the theta. So theta, if we say this is theta, here is not time, it's pulses. Yeah. Here the k is not time, it's pulses. Like the number starts from 0, 1, 2, 3, the integers. So it's pulses. If it is k, the previous, oh sorry, this is not k, this is the previous one, right? This is k minus 1. If it is previous one, so this is the theta of k. So what we see here is, if this is theta, this is previous value of theta. So what is theta of k? The theta of k, or the present theta, is equal to the previous value. So we have previous value plus we have to add with another term, that is L times epsilon. The L is the first one and the epsilon is the second one in the multiplication. We are doing all matrix multiplication. So L times epsilon, we get this. So we have finished all the algorithm, and we can see the results. Let us see the result. Okay. So we are expecting 9.3 and 0.22. Let us see what we are getting. We are getting 0.22. It's very close to the 0.22. And the other one is not allowed to zoom. Let me stop this. And is very close to 9.35. It's 9.35, but close to the real value, which is 9.3. And remember, we are using in microcontroller without any integration, just by one delay. It's very simple algorithm. I mean, very simple to implement this algorithm. And the last thing I want to show is the Z and Z cap. If they are the same. What we expect in this graph is first they start at different values and eventually they get to the same values. I'm connecting very quick, so you may not look properly. I mean, it may not look properly, but let me try to make it little better. Okay, so let us see how this graph looks. Okay, I'll give more values. I'm taking only 100 points. Let me take 10 points. So Z and Z cap are starting at a different as we expect, and as the time goes, after some time we can see they are very close. So this is the last thing I wanted to show for the parametric identification. Please ask me if you have any doubts. This is the end of the parametric identification, three-day session. So if you have any doubts in parametric identification, please ask me.
So we have identified the two discrete components, right, with a two order with this example, Z and Z cap. Am I right, Suresh?
Sorry, I didn't hear properly. Some noise. Can you please repeat the question, please?
Yes. Actually, we are comparing Z and cap, right? They're the
Z
two
and Z cap,
different, yes. Different estimations. Approximations.
The Z is actual measurement and Z cap is the estimation.
Yes. Yeah. So the Z is what we're talking about in this is which discrete component. Go back to the question. I think we are solving a robot arm, right?
Mm-hmm. The Z in robot arm, if you see the parametric model, yeah. The your voice is it's breaking, Kalyan.
I'm sorry, like my net has some issues today. So
okay.
Am I clear? I think so.
Yeah, I can hear now.
Okay. So A and B we have estimated.
What we want to estimate is A and B value. So how do we make sure that we estimated correctly? Is by matching our result with the result we are measuring.
Yeah, that's what.
Yes.
So we have approximated in terms of Z and Z cap, right? As per the algorithm. Okay. Yeah. Fine. That's what like clarity I want to make it with respect to example. Thank you.
Okay. Very good.
Yeah, Professor Suresh.
Yes.
Generally, the discrete time step what we are taking, because number of times we do a lot of simulations without even caring for whether we can really implement it in real time by using a microcontroller or not. So because in while implementing simulations, we go for very small step size and then to get accuracy and all. So what really we have to, is it only the step size which we have to consider while in converting this algorithm to discrete and going for testing it for practical case or implementing it on microcontroller or for that matter any digital processor? Is
Yes.
it only the step size or anything else? And can we really go for what is the highest, like what is a highest speed or what is a finite step we can go till normally with the available controllers now? Can we just have some light on it?
Yes. With the controllers, for example, using Arduino, we can go to 1 millisecond, sir. The simulation we are doing to 1 millisecond.
Okay.
Arduino, with using one simple Arduino, we can go to 1 millisecond and we can perform this complete algorithm. We can apply on Arduino with the same accuracy what we are having here. The only thing is this part should be implemented in the hardware. So what I mean is we have to put some RC circuits to make sure the noise is attenuated. And to differentiate, we have to use some kind of circuit. We have to come up with some circuit which does this. So this part of the computation is done in the circuit in the analog form.
Okay. So it is only the step size which we normally look for?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And
so for example, in this simulation, I'm changing the step size to 10 milliseconds, and let us see if the algorithm works good. So we can see the Z and Z dot are converging. So let me see in the parameter estimation what is the value they are estimating. 10 milliseconds. So even with the 10 milliseconds, we can see it's the results are little different, but it's estimating. It's coming to the closer. It's coming to 10, and this value is going to 0.24. So if we have a better sampling, the result will be much better.
But generally, many like I don't know, robotics or very complicated systems, they require even better sampling time, right? 1 millisecond, I think, is it really gives good solution for majority of the practical complicated problems? Because when we go for MATLAB, we go for 1 microsecond or something like that. So is it really practical? What is realistic sampling time you suggest? Because when we go for simulation in MATLAB, we just go just like that for one microsecond and we do a lot of simulations. But is it realistic that we do such a finite step, such a small step, or realistic time steps are only around 1 millisecond or something like that?
Okay. For example, now I am simulating with 100 microseconds or 0.1 milliseconds. If you see, let me show you the accuracy. We get very accurate value, 0.22, and this value is very close to 9.3. So I'm using very small sampling time. So as you said, if you use small sampling time, the results will be accurate. But in the real life, for me, until now, I use only 1 millisecond for most of my applications, and it works good. But mostly what I use is electromechanical systems. So the mechanical system, so for if it is a mechanical system, you see 1 millisecond is a very small number for that. I mean, very small time.
So this fits well for all robotics, 1 millisecond.
All robotics, yes. But if you are doing some communication systems or something which is all digital or all electric, then you have to go for some much smaller sampling time. Yes.
So generally, robotics processors we use is Arduino boards are good, working well for this robotics part.
Arduino boards are working good. Yes, sir. Now I'm seeing there is another module called ESP32. I didn't see it working, but I'm seeing the specifications and I'm working on some other Internet of the Things projects, and it looks little better than normal Arduinos.
Okay.
It's a 32-bit processor. It's faster and it's got more memory. So if in the future projects, I'm going to use ESP32.
ESP32.
Yes.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome, sir. So,
any of the audience have any further doubts? You can please get it clarified. Raise your doubts. So, so
yes.
that is the end of the session, Professor Suresh, or do you want to add something else?
No, nothing else. This is what I want to show until now for the parametric identification. The next 3 classes, I think we start
Next
in the
sessions.
Monday. It will be for adaptive control. Yes.
Can you just give a small glimpse of what will be the next session about?
The adaptive, the next session we can see a little bit about first about observers. We can see how can we estimate the states, and then we can go for the adaptive control. In adaptive control, what does we do is there are some techniques, some laws, like how we are seeing algorithms here. The same way we have some algorithms. What it makes sure is the result will be following the input we are giving. So if we give some step wave, the output should try to follow the step wave. It's called the tracking. That's one type of adaptive control we use. The other one is model reference adaptive control, which is our main focus, or it will be the last one we will be seeing. In that, what we do is we give our input to a model and we have our own system. So what we want our system to behave is it should behave like how the model we are giving. So for example, if you have a second order system with lot of oscillations, but you want that to behave like a first order system. So what you will do is you put one first order system and you take the output of the first order system and you compare it with the real model what we have, and we try to make the real model give the output as the first order system, and we try to make sure the algorithm does that. That's our model reference adaptive control, the last part of the workshops.
Thank you for the wonderful session today. The practical insights that you have given on parameter estimations. Thank you. Hope all the audiences might have benefited out of it. Have a good day, sir.
Thank you, sir.
It's good night for you. Is it good night now?
It's morning 10:15 for me, sir.
Okay, cannot you say good night? Okay, have a good day.
Okay, thank you. Good night for all of you.
Okay, all the audience, have a good day.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you. Yeah, bye.